The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily represent those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting group. Access Fort Wayne is a department of the Allen County Public Library. If you or anyone you know might be interested in making a television show, please call 260-421-1250.
Happy New Year! Let's have a great year. Today's speech, talk, whatever you want to call it, entertainment, is the mind, body, and the spirit. And I thought that I would review a book, one of the first books which I wrote about 25 years ago, called The Call of Life. I wrote the 20 prescriptions that lead to a good life. What was I trying to do? I was a neurosurgeon, and I saw a lot of the problems I was seeing really were things where people were involved in accidents, and they were smoking and drinking too much, eating the wrong food. That was 90% of the illness as a neurosurgeon that I was seeing. So I know you can't take some religious code necessarily and bring it into the school, so in society. So I wrote, as a physician, I wrote the 20 prescriptions. And here's the book that you could see, and I called it The Call of Life. And you say, what's that on the cover? Well, that actually is a statuette that sits in front of the Children's Criminal Justice Building on Wall Street, just at the entrance. And actually, if you look at the statue in the middle, it's made out of bronze. It done by a sculptor. And at the bottom, at the very bottom, actually, are guns and machine guns I got from the police. Yes. And then you see the yellow flame going up to dove on top. So it's conflict to resolution. It's about 17 feet high. If you ever want to see it, you can, as you drive down Wall Street, put it in front of the building. There are benches there, and in springtime there's flowers there. And I tried to put it in front of the courthouse, but I was voted down. They had their reasons, but code of behavior, not just for people who ended up with problems with the law, but just in life. So I called it The Call of Life. And I even took it to the head of the school board, but she didn't listen. But again, I'm always pushing the envelope, trying to improve humanity and people, and it's working. And but Public Access TV, I'm ever so thankful today that I could speak about it. And to be more specific about it, I mean, they're young children. That's the best time to teach it. So for the statue to sit in front of the Children's Building, of which are written, the 20 prescriptions, incidentally. I also wrote one for children who don't read, to teach it early in the schools, called Kid Scripts. And I will hold it up later, a little better for you. And it's really essentially the same prescriptions, a little bit through humor and crayons to color them. So let's get off on this adventure today and have a little bit of fun. And in this book, I have stories attached to each prescription, which are kind of interesting. So it's worth reading the whole thing. Obviously, I can't read the whole book till you think that I'm not. But let's go over it a little bit. Prescription number 1 is treat others as you would like to be treated. Wow, I mean, that makes sense. we my microphone fell down. And must not be holding real good. I hope you can hear me better. But what I was saying was today's talk is about, it's called the Call of Life. It's about the 20 prescriptions that lead to a good life. Number one is treat others as you would like to be treated. I mean, that makes sense. I've always, no matter who I saw as a patient in the office, I would see children, normal people, very sick people, people whose relative was dying. They're all were different. I saw criminals and prisoners, and police brought them in, but I always treated them well, and I always got along well, even with serious criminal people. I treated them as they would like to be treated. Let me give you a couple of quotes here. I set out to find a friend, but couldn't find one. I set out to be a friend, and friends were everywhere. Laughter helps. A big smile is very helpful. Some people are smiling all the time, and their smile, frankly, bring out friendship immediately. I see people on TV. I see the new mayor of New York City, the black gentleman, Eric Adams. He's got one of the best smiles. I like to buy it. But I pay a lot of attention to him, I think, because he's projecting, and when he's talking about a serious problem like the virus, for example, he shows compassion. He's being a friend and gets this message across. Here is another story. Another quote. Just listen to this. Constant kindness can accomplish much. As the sun makes the ice melt, just visualize the ice melting. Today being a cold day, it would be a good one. Kindness causes misunderstanding, mistrust, and hostility to evaporate. I hope it works for President Biden today, because he's speaking about serious problems to the president of Russia. But I would think, no matter how tough the other guy is, if you speak in kind and non-hostile words, you're more likely to get that person to listen. I rarely have changed anybody's mind by screaming at them. We don't have to say, well, I disagree with you. But instead, listen to what they say, and if you change them even a little bit, maybe it's the start of change that may occur over a day, a week, a month, or a year. But to be immediately disagreeable will not change their mind. It's different for different problems, no doubt about it. But that's the first prescription. There's some very nice stories in my book, The Call of Life, also in regards to my life. For example, I came to town as a neurosurgeon, and on New Year's Eve, the doorbell rang. New Year's Eve, after 6 months of practice, 7 p.m., there stands my partner who'd hired me. I was his employee for 6 months. And he had a letter in a box, and you know what? It's not something to smile about, frankly. He fired me. I had 3 kids. I bought another house at Wabasee when I couldn't afford it, so I had 2 houses, 2 mortgages, 3 children, and I have no job. And in debt. As a matter of fact, I treated others as I like to be treated. I saw some patients who had no money or could afford nothing beyond the insurance, and I forgave their debt, which legally I didn't have the right to do since I was not owner of the practice. My partner had added up how much that I'd done. He added up to $30,000, and he gave me the bill for it. Yeah. So I had another $30,000 bill, and weather was worse in those days than now. So you can imagine what I went through. I would say, sure, you could fire me, but there might have been a kind of way. A man with 3 children, maybe a month's wages or a warning that I could have prepared. But anyway, in the end, somebody took care of that, and I don't want to tell you what happened to him over the years, and I had nothing to do with it. I think the guy above did it. But so treat your employees kind. Matter of fact, you know what happened? I ran a large corporation. I had 6 neurosurgeons and then neurologists, many employees, a few hundred employees. I never fired a one. Were there some that I should have fired? Yes. But you know what I did to them? I sat them down, talk about things they had done wrong, asked them not to do it again, and taught them how to be a good employee. I did that. In all my years of neurosurgery, 45 years, I never fired one person. Yeah. And so you can change 99% of the people if you talk to them a little bit. So let's go to the next prescription. Be honest. Do not lie, cheat, or steal. Make your word your bond. If you say it kindly and don't back up on it as you find out you are wrong, which can happen to anybody. If you're wrong, change your mind. Believe me, that's happened to me and happens to all of us. But to be honest, not to lie, to cheat or steal, I think is very good habits. Let me give you a couple of quotes. Honesty is the first chapter in the Book of Wisdom, Thomas Jefferson. Very important. So teach the children, or you as a child, don't steal from your brother or sister or anyone else. It will come to haunt you. It'll get to be a habit. If your mother says, "Are you smoking?" and you say no and you lie about it, she'll find out sooner or later. Never esteem anything as an advantage to thee that shall make thy break thy word or lose thy self-respect. Marcus Aurelius. If you do something dishonest, the other person may not know, but you know it'll add up. Your self-respect, which is very important, will decrease, and you will develop a tendency to dishonesty. A gentleman is one who keeps his promises to those who cannot enforce them. Okay? And there are people who cannot enforce your being dishonest, but you don't want to be dishonest to them. J. Edgar Hoover, a famous man who was head of the FBI for 30-odd years, 35 years or something, yeah. And most of you may not even know who he is. He founded the FBI and was part of the FBI. And what he said, and someone asked him, the renowned FBI director, what would you tell a son? This was his answer. Above all, I would teach him to tell the truth. Truth-telling, I found, is the key to responsible citizenship. The thousands of criminals I've seen in 40 years of law enforcement, 40 years, okay, have had one thing in common. Every single one was a liar. Wow. Wow. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He in a very tough agency, but he was human, like all of us. I'm process of rereading his biography because it's very interesting, and I encourage you to maybe read it sometime. And I found as a physician that the trust in most critical relationship with a patient is with a doctor. They trust what I say. They don't have enough information to make their own decisions. If I say operate, I found 99% of the people say yes, okay? But medicine is complex. I encourage people to get on the internet, gather information, read books. So you may be speaking to a medical provider who hasn't looked at the same websites that you did. And when you bring something in question, it's a good idea. Good idea. Always listen carefully to patients who would question and encourage them to seek more information. In most medical conditions, some emergency, you got to do it like that. But a lot of them, you can make up your mind. And a lot of illnesses that I found in my patients, that's the reason I wrote 20 books, is because the mind has a lot to do with the human body. We are not just our blood test. We are not just our x-ray. You get a broken arm, okay, x-ray shows it, you are your x-ray. But most things in medicine, the mind is attached to the body. So learn about the mind-body connection. We will speak more of that. I mean, that's really important. Number 3, prescriptions. Remember, I'm writing you prescriptions. Treat life with care. Avoid risky behavior. And that's kind of interesting because I treated the products of risky behavior. Head injuries, broken necks, too much alcohol, too many cigarettes, and cancer. Broken bones. I could go down the list of things, and that developed a sense in me, but I think I had it even as a child. So before I get on a ladder or go skiing off a high mountain, I frankly can't do it. I think it's embedded, I think, in my body. So, and some people just don't get over it. They do one risky thing after another, and some die, some get paralyzed, and all sorts of, or they're drinking too much alcohol, smoking cigarettes, all risky behavior, eating too much processed food, getting all kind of illnesses. I could go on and on and on. So courage is almost a contradiction in terms. It means a strong desire to live, taking the form of readiness to die. So when you see a soldier with a gun and he's involved in the war, he may have the courage to face the enemy and has the readiness to die. But many things that we do, it is not that important that we do it. You're a soldier, well, you got to do certain things. But some of the habits that we have, you don't have to do. You don't have to walk on thin ice. Now we get thin ice. You may go through and you may drown. So you have to decide what is risky behavior, especially with your children. I saw a mother and a little child walking out of a food market. I was waiting for my wife to come back with what she was buying. The little child ran in back of the cars. How old's a child? 5, 6 years old. That's risky behavior. any car backed up would have killed a child like that. Yeah. So you got to understand what is risky. Am I guarding my children? Do I have habits which protect my health and the health of the children, because they may copy what I'm doing, what I'm doing. So I saw a lot in the Vietnam War. I was an officer in the war, did neurosurgery, so I saw a tremendous amount of risks people had to take. Yeah. So so they have fear, but they have to take the risk. So what are things you can avoid? I could have a list with 1,000 things, but that's drugs and alcohol. There's a big one. Smoking today, you want to die young, smoke. Alcohol on every drink, incidentally, destroys some brain cells, yes. Do I have a glass of wine now and then? Yes, I do. But the brain regrows more cells in one day if you have 2 or 3 glasses of wine a week, but it is recommended today not to drink alcohol at all. So that's my recommendation. As a neurosurgeon, what I saw, alcohol will destroy brain cells. I saw people who acted fairly normal, but a third of their brain was missing. Yeah. And they get a blood clot and they would dissolve. And they would act fairly normal because their brain had shrunk. I saw people with brains that far off the skull. Shifted way over on both sides of the brain. They're going to have problems down the line, no doubt about it. Probably get dementia at an early age, maybe get paralyzed, maybe lose their speech. Alcohol does that. And I remember visiting my relatives in Boston, and the people in the next door were 2 Germans like myself, because I born in New York, but I moved to Germany. My parents did, so I moved with them. A wonderful German couple. I spoke their language and everything, and then I got a phone call 2 years later, and they're both dead. Alcohol does that. You get it more likely to get in accidents, and so drugs and alcohol, seat belts, not fastened, kills many people driving a vehicle. Motorcycles, you say, well, that's a normal vehicle. Well, they're more dangerous. I would never ride on one. Did I say no one should ever ride on one? No. But though you can be careful with it, don't race down the road with it. Remember a man and his wife, when I was leaving a hotel, and they were going around the whole country for a year in a motorcycle. Well, am I against that? No. The camaraderie, and that's great. But you got to learn what is risky about it. And motorcycles, when they're recklessly ridden, are much more risky than a car. Guns in the home. You say, well, you're an anti-gun person. No. When a gun is in a home, when they're not protected from the children, they're not locked up, 2 or 3 children die every day from guns not locked up. Yet congressmen, senators, representatives don't have the guts to change the law. Now in Indiana, they're in the process of passing a law that you can have a gun, wear it out in the public, and not have a permit. That's what they're doing. If you voted for somebody like that, I would say you're partly at fault. That guy in there, he's there because you voted for him. Find out what they say. That's not an anti-gun statement. That's a safety statement. Yes, 2 to 3 guns die because family at home doesn't have to lock them up. They don't keep the bullets separate from the gun, which is a good thing to do. And you read about the recent actor who killed another actor while on set with a gun that was loaded. He should have checked it beforehand himself. He depended on somebody else. No, you don't depend on somebody else. You yourself. If there's abuse in the home, if there's alcohol in the home, especially if there's a gun in the home, be careful. And you should know if your neighbor has a bunch of guns, because your children will go to that house. And what's the situation with guns in their home? I could talk on that for an hour. I'm not going to, though. But I brought up the subject, okay? They have now out there tasers and different things and sprays and things which are keeping the car in the house, which are even more effective than guns if you feel like you need some protection. Yeah, I have one on myself most of the time. It's better than a gun, because a gun you may miss, but a spray, odds are you will not miss. And you won't end up killing somebody, which I'm not inclined to do. So even wave runners that I saw at Lake Wabasee, where people are just going 100 miles an hour, think, oh, it's just water. Well, our body cannot take the speeds, and the turning that they do on these things is you don't need to be hit by something to be damaged by it. The amount of rotation, after a while, the skull and the brain will rotate at different speeds. I remember seeing a girl years ago, came to the emergency room, and she had blood all over the brain. And I thought, well, she had a ruptured aneurysm, a ruptured balloon, blood vessel. But I did an angiogram, injected, I found nothing. And then went back and took some more history, found out she'd been on Lake Wabasee on a wave runner and done a tremendous number of turns. I'm sure it looked beautiful. But her brain, which is of a distant weight than the skull, were rotating at different speeds. And after a while, some of the veins tore and caused major bleeding all over her brain. She fortunately did not develop excessive brain edema, and she survived. But it's kind of interesting. So, actually, to quote right out of my book, 8 children or teenagers are killed by firearms each day. So we're talking the one where the guns aren't even used, where the child found them. But then there are robberies and shootings in homes and abuse. An American child is 12 times more likely to die from gunfire than a child in any other industrialized nation. Talk it over with your loved ones if you have guns. That's prescription number 3. Number 4, practice showing respect for authority. Parents, teachers, police, and government. Let's use the police for an example. You read so much in the paper these days. You know, if you take 100 policemen or 100 ordinary people, there's going to be a couple that think a little funny. That's just the nature of things. So you put a gun on their hand, and now they're a policeman. And you're driving down the road, and you get stopped. They get a gun. Maybe you got one too. I don't know. An interchange may occur, and maybe the words get out of hand. But I always said, which nobody's adopted, that they do it in some countries, incidentally, if the policeman and the person would show some respect for each other, respect, authority. Officer, sir, no matter what we did. And the officer said, citizen, sir, or ma'am, you think the situation might end up being less confrontational? What are the odds of them shooting each other? Okay? And that could be done on every contact. Officer, sir, ma'am, citizen, sir, ma'am. So I went to the police department here to try to get them to adopt it, and they just stared at me. But don't you think that might not be a bad idea? And the same it is with your parents. you may think what they're saying to you is a bit confrontational. And at that point, I think I put my hands up and say, sorry, Dad, sorry, Mom, instead of a confrontation, especially, which happens more often than we think, that other person is intoxicated, or they're taking drugs, or other things have happened, and you don't know how they feel. The other siblings, brothers and sisters, may have given them trouble. So to be respectful, listen to what they got to say, and maybe if you strongly disagree, bring it up the next day or calm your voice down. So, and the same is with the teacher. You might find a teacher is being a little rough on you and you think it's unnecessary. And show them respect and talk to the principal afterwards. They'll take up what you had to say, and if you say it often enough, that teacher's got a problem. But if you take on the teacher by being disrespectful to a teacher because you're a bigger person or something, you're not going to solve anything. Okay? So, and the same for government. I don't agree with my congressmen on most things, but one can work their way into their office. It's tough. The doors are locked and tough to get in and talk to them, but I've done it. I've even been to Washington, D.C. and treat each other with respect and maybe hand them information that's written up or talk to the assistant. But to scream at each other, like I see at some of our county meetings, would that get done? The county council is shut down now. I can't go in there and tell them anything in person, which I've done. Okay. And so there's a way, so he that respects not is not respected. No matter how much you disagree, you may be speaking to people who don't get vaccinated. Australia, 92% are vaccinated. 92. US, 62. Where do you think more people are dying? You don't get vaccinated, you can kill your kids, your neighbors, your husband, your wife, your family, the whole block. But people who are not vaccinated, they don't see that. How are you going to change their mind? These are intelligent people. By respecting them and gently prod your way to maybe you can get something done. To say, you're stupid for not vaccinating because you could kill the whole family, the world, because the virus spreads. If you're in a pyramid, you're on top, you're not vaccinated, you could kill a lot, thousands of people. 99% of the people who die from the virus are not vaccinated. But me screaming this at you didn't change your mind. So if you're talking to somebody, do it gently. So if you have some respect for people as they are, not vaccinated, you can be more effective in helping them to become better than they are. I don't want to make them mad and call them stupid. I want to make them better. So let's be gentle about it. But it's hard when it seems so obvious. So he that respects not is not respected. Okay. Stephen Covey wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Families. And you can read his book and learn the 7 habits. And I've taken, for example, groups of underprivileged children to my lake cottage to expose them to the lake. They had never been there. I showed them respect, and they showed me respect. They helped clean things up. And I took the Unity Performing Arts Choir there, great kids who tremendous singing organization. They showed me a lot of respect. They helped clean up, so went both ways. Number 5, do not let physical or mental abuse go unnoticed. If you see that someone is being abused, a child, an elderly person, a man, wife, anybody, if you see abuse, it is your obligation to report it. If you don't, actually, there's problems in the law that you can be fined, you can be in jail overnight. So it's better to protest than to accept injustice. As Otis Archie, a sheriff in Grand County, who became a friend of mine, most of my career has been spent in law enforcement, and I am a big advocate for reporting and ceasing violence. To report it doesn't mean you want to necessarily put that person in jail. But let me tell you something about that. If someone reports you for abusing your children, law enforcement will come the next day and take your kids away. As a doctor, I saw it. So sad. It had to be reported, though, because there are times the next day that child may be dead. There's a lot of child and adult abuse going on. You got to tell somebody, and that's not just a brother or sister. You must tell law enforcement, and they are obligated to act on it. I saw an awful lot of that, and I saw results where children had tracheostomies, brain damage, lived in a nursing home the rest of their life because a family member beat them to a pulp. Frustrations, anger, all do these things. It's animals do it, but much less, much less. I sort of relate to animals. I have bird feeders, and I feed them, and I see the deer and the woodchucks and the birds, and they rarely abuse each other. Interesting. But they can. But rarely they show respect to their offspring. Yeah. Believe me, I've seen it. So our most basic common link is that we're all inhabit the earth, plant and animals. We all breathe the same air. We all share our children's future, and we're all moral. Okay? And love cannot remain by itself. It has no meaning. Love has to be put into action, and that action is service. Mother Teresa said that. Just to throw in some quotes. So to show, to report abuse, I think, is quite important. So let me give you some examples. Don't get into a car unless your parents tell you to do it. Stay away from anyone who follows you on foot or in a car. Grown-ups and other people who need help should not be asking children for help. Grown-ups should not be asking you for directions or to look for a lost puppy or telling you that your mother or father is in trouble. We're speaking about children here. Quickly get away from anyone who tries to take you somewhere and yell and scream. We're talking about children. Okay? Tell anyone who wants to take you a picture, no, and tell your parents or teacher. We're talking about child abuse here. No one should touch you on parts of your body covered by your bathing suit, nor should you touch anyone else in those areas. Again, teaching children in abuse. We have to really watch the kids so they don't get abused. Here, number 6, read a book regularly. Now people are going online, reading books that way, and that's fine. I personally am out of hand. 1,500 books in my basement. They're all my friends. I've read them all because of these TV shows, some 2 or 3 times, because I repeat the shows, like on the environment. Once a year I have a show on that, so I reread these 6 books on the environment. But get in the habit, fiction, nonfiction, whatever you enjoy doing. For me, it's been mainly about medicine, because I treat people how to get well, prevent illness, prevention of illness, how to get rid of diabetes, common shows that I do. But you can travel all around the world without buying a train or a plane or a boat ticket. you could travel in books. There's a young boy that lived in Kentucky who parents never even sent him to school, but he always went to the library and he read the library. So when he finally thought he'd better learn a job, he went to college and they gave him a test and found out he didn't even need to go to college, that he knew more than they would teach any student. That's an unusual story, but I remember seeing in my class a kid in the back. He read all kind of books. He never listened to anything. Never. He ended up smarter than all of us. But those are just unusual stories. But you can hide in books. Oprah, for example, Oprah Winfrey. I was reading her biography. She had a very abusive family situation, and used to go in a closet with a flashlight and read books all day. And look where she is now, a billionaire. So, and it fits your imagination. Maybe you even want to write books. I write books. You don't have to write books. But some are not just about medicine, but I'm reading. I read a book every 3 days. You don't have to do that. But I'm reading one about the Plaza. I used to live in New York City, and I have stayed at the Plaza, visited the Plaza. I used to ice skate in front of the Plaza. So it has been part of my life. And to read all the stories or the hotel, what occurred there. And then I met Eloise, this fictional character that Mary Thompson, a singer, entertainer, invented to the point she went all over the world. You could watch her on TV. It's put on. You want to watch the movie about Eloise. Mary Thompson wrote a book on her. But her child was tremendous imagination. But books, you can travel anywhere and you gain information, expertise. So I think it's important. So good things come in small packages. Now, you can read them online too. I prefer to feel and touch the book, but we're all different. Maybe because I'm older, that's that way. Maybe most people in the future is digital, but I like to underline and circle, and we're all different about it. And Thomas Edison, for example, inventor of the AC current, okay? He didn't invent the DC current, the current that you switch the light on and off. That's Tesla. Tesla was invented. Yeah, I read his biography. I encourage you to read his biography. But Edison said, I didn't read books. I read the library. To get the light bulb going, I think he tried different filaments till he came up with tungsten, I think 10,000 times, maybe 100,000 times, I forget. So to repeat things and to see if they work is very interesting. In this book, so I have very nice stories about different people. The richest man in the world, Bill Gates, once confided to the media, my favorite hobby is reading. The great emancipator Frederick Douglass wrote that he owed all his achievements to books. He said reading and books were a pathway from slavery to freedom. Remember, he was a black man. America's master of historical fiction, James Michener, said, by the time I was 12 old, I had read 40 volumes of Balzac. Former NBA superstar Michael Jordan told journalists, I read nonfiction so I can learn. I read a lot of my books so I can learn about medicine in detail, and frankly, it's worked. At age 39 for the 46th time, I'll take you on. You want to discuss something? I've read it in books, and you can get ideas and mentors, and from books. Each of us is a mythical representation of our inner truths. Our job and other mundane experiences are merely symbols of a larger mythological meaning. That's Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, said it best. It is not Goethe who creates Faust, it's Faust who creates Goethe. So it's all about imagination and movies. So let's kind of speed up a little bit so we get through more of these. Be tolerant of others' beliefs. There's a big one, because you grow up as a child and you go into a certain church and you've been indoctrinated, maybe even brainwashed, and maybe it's a good idea. We need to learn standards of behavior. But it's good to be open-minded too. In my basement, I've got 50 books on religion, going back thousands of years, and I've read the history of our religions, and there's a differences in religions. So be closed-minded and just accept one and not be open-minded, at least to listen to another one, I think is a mistake. I think it's very important to have religion. It's very important to have faith. But if another person is of another religion, respect that person, study their religion, and still treat them as your friend. There are a few, clearly, and you got to be careful. There are a few out there which are extremist things, and really crazy things happen. They all gather together and they go to Africa or they go to someplace and they're all brainwashing each other, and before you know it, they're putting each other on fire. So you got to be open-minded. So I suggest to study faith, religion, belief, other religions, and obey. And if yours seems like a very acceptable religion, then show it its respect and maybe live your life accordingly. Number 8, express honor, love, respect for your family. This is important. Even if they're not on the right path, you've got to live there and show them some respect. But that doesn't mean, though, that you can't point out to Dad that he's smoking and nobody else is smoking, that he's going to die young, and you like to avoid that you love him, so that you might be able to figure out ways to deal with that, or is too much alcohol is in the home, or they're not going to church. Those are things that maybe you could point out, but you might show them a book, have them watch a show, a DVD, a hug, point out a neighbor some way to escape what they are doing. And we've all been through that. It's if you look at a big family, many of them are totally different, hardly ever is everybody the same, and if they are, they may even be very rigid people, and that may not be good. So be open-minded, respect other people's beliefs. If someone says this is the way you go to heaven, well, that's what they believe, respect that. And maybe read something about it, maybe they're right, okay? But be open-minded, okay? But I think that's important. And make a commitment to continue education throughout your life. Here I am, 39 years old, for the 46th time, add them together, okay? I'm reading all the time and improving my knowledge, and I'm a doctor, so I guess maybe it seems natural to help people prevent illness, but I found out maybe a lot of my fellows just make their money that way, and they're not teaching anybody how to avoid disease. I've always wondered about that, but hey, I can just control my own life, and so to continue education, I think, is important. Books, certain internet sites, but don't walk around like this, and never look up and walk right into a car. Okay, I see this a lot these days. You don't want to be brainwashed by a certain internet site. You can watch certain internet sites. They can wash your brain. It has nothing to do with the truth. And you start acting like it's the truth. I think a lot of people are doing that today, not getting vaccinated, for example, could be one of them. Not voting for certain political parties, or be open-minded, or elect for a congressman who's the same way. Keep that in mind. Have I been brainwashed? as a person I'm speaking to or care about been brainwashed. I think so. The next one, show respect for all life, human and animal. You can guess right now already what I'm saying is that I respect animal life just as important as personal life. And I have an argument, no doubt about it, and I'm not trying to promote it. And I know years ago we used to hunt things to get food, but we don't necessarily need to kill something to eat it today. Okay? But most people think it's acceptable. All the animals that live outside my window, I watch them morning, I feed them, I don't kill them. But give it a thought. I respect the life of other animals. I walk in nature and sing songs and look at the birds and look at the trees, and they show me respect in return. It's just a way of life. I'm just doesn't mean you got to do it, but boy, it sure makes you feel good. Makes you sing songs. I sing songs to the birds. I do, and you know what? They sing back. I whistle at them. They whistle back. Yeah. They do. They come down on their trees, and they're going back up, and I want them to sit on my hat. They want to do that, and I shouldn't be doing that, because you get bit by a bird, I might need to go to the emergency room. They can have strange diseases, but anyway, I'm out there. No one's attacked me yet, and I walk almost every day. But be careful. It can be a little slippery in the ice. Wear special shoes. But not everybody can do that. But I do that. It makes me feel good. Okay, and so show respect for the other animals, and avoid violence. Practice nonviolence. Support peace. I've been in peace marches. And what good is most war? You know, there's some wars we get to be in. But we've been in a lot of wars that were not necessary. And they were not necessary. We could have dealt with other ways. Certainly, our towers were taken out by extremist individuals. But we have enough drones and other ways of, which we finally did, essentially, of evening things out. But to start wars all the time, I think those days should be over. I think NATO was a good idea. You notice we have less war now with NATO, but like we're speaking to Russia tomorrow, and we get A-bombs, and who knows? But we need to support everything we can to support peace and to speak to people, show respect to people, and negotiate with people. At least give it a try, but sometimes you just got to do it. I'm not opposed to that. World War I and II, I think we didn't have much choice on our side, and much choice, but we should try to avoid them. And the same with other conflicts that occur. Fights that break out in houses down the street, and like that, those men that were recently convicted with life imprisonment for shooting this boy walking through their neighborhood. It's a complex case, but those gentlemen should have realized there was a better way to deal with that than to shoot that person. The conflicts can be resolved differently. And celebrate our differences, sex, race, background, appearance, disabilities. Treat the people all alike. I spend a lot of my time working in the city. We had anti-violence marches. There's more complications of health because they can't afford, were not taught, or whatever food they were eating, so a lot more diabetes there. I've been in there teaching. So, but I respect those people. They are listening. I even have a choir of, which is probably 80% in the city, children. that I support with some money, and I'm there when they're singing. I'm there. I've gone to churches with them. I've traveled to another country with them. So, but I respect other races, other religions. We're all living things, whether animal or human. What difference does the color make? I think we're slowly improving, but it's not having quick enough. And practice self-control. Exercise your body and mind. Well, we are what we eat, essentially. Mm-hmm. We are actually what our bacteria, our biome is. We get trillions of bacteria live in our gut. So whatever you feed them is what you become. Most of the diseases that we have, whether it's dementia, dental diseases, mainly from sugars, memory loss, strokes, heart disease, amputations, dislocations. 80% of kidney disease is from having diabetes, and diabetes is caused because you're eating the wrong food 90% of the time. A few people are maybe born with it, but usually if they're born with it, their genetic script was written by their parents and what they ate, whether they ate gluten or not, or sugary products all the time. That's true. So to learn about health, it's very important to know, and to become so you can feed the children the right food, because many people die 20 or 30 years before their time because they had a disease they inflicted upon themselves, and part of it is they did not have knowledge, and part of it is a fault of our physicians. The patient comes in to see us, and we just hand them a pill or prescription instead of teaching them how to get rid of the disease. That's my passion. How to get rid of the disease, that is my passion and my life's passion, to prevention. One of the biggest reasons is it's not that hard. Eat the right food. Eat good fats, 20% protein, and not much sugar, and you will be healthy. I couldn't go through all 20 of these because I'm running out of time. But you can get this book on the library, Amazon, real cheap. The other book I wanted to mention in a minute, to make it easier for little children, because they don't read, I wrote a book here called Kid Scripts. Have a look at that. And what I've done, I hired somebody who used to be the main cartoonist of the Journal Gazette, Daniel Lynch. You won't believe this, who himself was having a medical problem that they had to release him from his job. And I saw him over at Bob Evans' restaurant, and I handed him a napkin and a pencil to find out he could still draw cartoons. I gave him a job. And he put this together, the coloring, and it's the coloring companion of The Color of Life, my book. And what he's done is to make it understandable for children. And you ought to look at some of these. Here's one. One of my 20 prescriptions, if I didn't get to, was about reproducing sexual relations. And here's number 17, wait to give yourself in marriage. And I want you to do a close-up on this cartoon. And you got to admit, it is good. Are you laughing with me? Well, all 20 pictures in here are things that a child can color in and learn while they're doing that. And you can get these on Amazon, and I'm proud of them. And it may use slightly different words. Anyway, thanks for listening to me. Let's start the New Year's right. Maybe post these on your refrigerator or in your kid's room. Maybe read them yourself. Rudy's 20 prescriptions to lead a good life. more stories in the book, many more stories you'll find very helpful. And have your kid take this book, color it in, and you'll be raising a great family. And what a nice way to start the year. I love you. That's why I'm doing this. So what I'm teaching is about the whole body, how we think, what we eat, and how we exercise. And that will be in my other talks. And I love you. That's why I did this today. Thanks.